Good evening, everyone. I pray that everyone is doing well. I'm the pastor of this church, Pastor Joshua Robertson, and I'm elated to be here this evening with you all and to discuss what I believe is very important, a part of community building and I think community reshaping. As one who grew up in this neighborhood, I grew up on Naldane Street, which is right around the corner. So whenever I say Psalm 23, yea, though I go through the valley, I've never been in a valley, so I take the V off. Yea, though I go through the alley, I know something about that. Shadows of death, I will fear no evil, because God is with us. I know that's right. God being with us, I think the most tangible expression of God being with us is in his image bearers, those who look like you and I. We are all made in the image of God. And so when we ask God for help, I think the most profound and tangible way that God helps us is by sending another human being into your life in order to help you. My brothers and my sisters, this community needs for us to be their arms and feet and minds that would embrace this community and help. Last summer, my life was changed. I believe the rest of my life has been changed as it relates to ministry and what it looks like to do ministry in a neighborhood like this. I did a funeral. I did 2 funerals in a row. On the Wednesday of that week, I did my own cousin's funeral who was shot uptown. She was 6 months pregnant. So her and her child died due to gun violence. The next day, I buried a young man, a double homicide victim that was shot on this street right here. My wife and children were hiding behind cars in the parking lot right here, and they were shooting right here in broad daylight, and buried that young man there. And at both funerals, I preached the funerals, went to the gravesite to do the committal, and I can never forget the sight of a parent looking at their child being lowered into a freshly turned grave. And it was at that point that I said, man, I started thinking about writing a book called Pastoring on Market Street, because it's really reshaped how I look at the world. When you see a parent looking at, how it is if you're a parent, you know what it's like to hold that child and have so many dreams and ambitions for them, and none of them conclude with them being the victim of gun violence like that. And so it really made me say the church, and even if you're not a Christian or whatever, you're still welcome here. I'm glad you're here. Don't worry about that. But for me, church and ministry, what it looks like then is doing more than saying prayers and singing hymns and preaching a sermon on Sunday. What it looks like is us partnering with different community organizations to try to get arms around these children, to try to help them. I told the congregation I salute Judge Morris, and because you don't have to do this, right? By the time the kids get to you, it's usually a bad situation. You have to make a tough decision, and you're doing the best, not just for the child, but you're doing the best for the community that we entrust you to protect. And so we commend you, we're praying for you, but I really love this visionary leadership that you have, and Tanessa, who is a jewel, and I don't know if y'all know how much of a jewel Tanessa is, but she's a jewel, and she's an anchor to this community. She comes from that. Her parents are like that. But they have this vision of partnering with different community organizations to try to intercede and help our children before they get in the system, but then also to provide an opportunity once they even get in the system, and give him an opportunity to take a kid maybe from this neighborhood and surround him with community support here, as opposed to sending a child once they get in trouble somewhere distant where they don't know. And you can just imagine how difficult that is. And so as a church, when Tanessa and Judge Morris asked for us to be a part of this and to host this session, there was no discernment or prayer needed. The answer was yes, because I love my community, I love people, I love you all, and I'm glad that you're here. And I think if we would, as a people, be the love warriors that would uplift our community, that in a number of years in the future, we can change the current trajectory. And so that's why I'm here. I'm glad for the few moments that you give me to speak. I'd like to say a word of prayer as we begin our time together this evening. Let us pray. Gracious and eternal God, we give you thanks and praise for this time that we share in your presence and with your people. And Lord, we thank you for life and health and strength. We thank you for the vision that you've given us to be here and for the information that you've gifted and anointed different individuals to present. And Lord, I pray that your grace would be upon us. I pray, dear God, that your dream for us would come true. And that's in John 13:34. This new commandment that I give you, that you love one another, even as I have loved you. And by this love, will all men know that we are your disciples. And so, Lord, help us to love one another in a way that even makes us inconvenienced at times. Lord, help us to press into sacrificial love so that we can help this community. Lord, give us the grace to be united, to be prayerful, but then also to put our hands to work and work for you. So bless this night, we pray. We pray for all of the grace that is needed and the resources that are needed in order to make this dream come to fruition. So bless us and make us a blessing. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you for this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Robertson, for opening us up this evening. But also thank you once again for your immediate support, immediate and active support for this initiative. We greatly appreciate you and the Rock Church, so thank you. Welcome. I am Tanessa Moten. I'm the Community Outreach Coordinator for Dauphin County Children and Youth Services, as well as for Dauphin County Juvenile Probation Office. And I welcome you to our second event for our Reach In to Reach Out initiative. Tonight, you will have the privilege of receiving an overview of the kinship, foster care, and adoption processes, all of which are very important for you to not just become aware of, but to have a better understanding of all of them, so we can collectively, as a community, as Pastor Robertson said, more effectively and more purposefully and more intentionally service the young people in this community. And so we do have several things, but before we do get any further into our evening, I want to make note to a couple of things. One, we do have a resource table as well as light refreshments that you can enjoy immediately following tonight's event. We also have a QR code. Angela would have provided folks who walked in with, of course, a program, but also a QR code. That QR code is very important for us because if you click on it, and if you choose not to use the QR code, that's okay. We have a printed off evaluation form. That's what the QR code is for. But we would like your feedback. We need your feedback because as we continue to do initiatives like this, we want to make sure we are incorporating your thoughts and what your vision as a community, because your thoughts are very valuable to how we continue to move forward as an agency. So just take a few minutes. It only takes maybe 2 minutes, if that, to complete the feedback form. We will gather all of that great information and we will move forward as a department accordingly. So we have the QR code, the resource table, and then we have our refreshments in the back. And we just ask you just to enjoy yourselves. We have some great folks who are here to present to us. I'm not going to steal their thunder. They will introduce themselves as they come up. But what we are going to do now is first we will have Judge Morris come forth and give a few words, and then immediately following him, we're going to have our testimonial. We had testimonials at our last event during our last meet and greet, and they did a wonderful job sharing. Our journeyers shared their journey and their experiences through the child welfare system. And so we have another individual who has yet another awesome experience that he is going to share with you all tonight. And so we'll have Judge Morris, and then immediately following him, we will have our testimonial for the evening, which will be Ezra Ranko.
All right, so first of all, I want to thank Pastor Robertson for allowing us to be here and partnering with us immediately when we started this initiative. But what I want to say about him and about this initiative is just imagine if Pastor Robertson was sent out of this community because his family went through some abuse or neglect, and he had to be sent to a foster home far away from here, sent somewhere and be adopted outside of this community. What a jewel we would have lost in this community. And that's what this initiative was in my mind when I thought about what was happening and what I was seeing in my courtrooms. I refuse to believe that there are not parents in this community that have love to give to those most neglected children in our community. And so that's what this is about. This is about us giving the information. You know, we want to pull the veil off so people can see what the agency is about, so people can feel comfortable and want to be a part of helping these families who are going through difficult times and difficult situations, helping these children who've experienced trauma and just need someone to help deliver them from that very difficult situation. And I want it to be here in Dauphin County. I don't want my caseworkers to have to drive miles and miles away to see children that they need to care for. I don't want my GALs, my guardians, to have to run all over the state behind children that belong here in this community. Think about, I know you played sports, you look like you played sports. Think about the sports that the friends he made during his sports endeavors, the friends he made at school, having to leave those friends because his parents unfortunately got into a difficult situation. What a jewel we would have lost for the community. And so I don't want to see that continue to happen. So that's what this initiative was born out of. I believe that Dauphin County has the parents and is equipped to take care of our children. And I want to have more of our kids staying in our community and having us provide for them the things that they need to be successful and move forward in their lives. So that's really why I'm here, why this initiative is important to me. And I'm thankful to Tanessa for spearheading this and pushing this forward. You know, from discussion to implementation is oftentimes hard. And we took it from discussion to implementation. And we're going to be out here. We're going to be, put it this way, we're going to be in the community's face about this, because I believe that we have the folks in this community who can help our children, and I want them to stay here. I want their roots to be here. I want them to not lose friends, not lose sports, not lose the connection to churches and civic things that are going on in this community, because I believe they'll be better for it. So that's what this is about. Thank you all for being here, and I thank all the people that are going to present tonight. Thank you for sacrificing your time for this and making this a priority. And I want to thank the Rock Church, because without the church, I'm sure the pastor couldn't do all the things that he does in the community. So I want to thank the church for lending him to the community when that's appropriate for him to do. So thank you all. And I'll turn it over to...
Hello, everyone. Good evening. I got a better result. No, I was kidding. So my name is Ezra Renko. I'm with Dauphin County, and thanks to Tanessa, I'm able to share my story today. I would say today is definitely different because my family's here. My beautiful wife and 2 kids, EJ and Maverick. 15 minutes. Got it. Got to stick to that. I have a large story to tell, and I always love telling it, but I would say my story started at 4.5. At 4.5, I was sent to live with my grandmother. It was a very, very, very weird day because I thought I was volunteering to hang out with my grandmother, and instead I was actually volunteering to go live with my grandmother. It was right before my birthday, so it was I thought it was like gonna have a party, thought it was gonna be really fun. I was like, this is great. I get to have all the free time and stuff, and As I grew up, it definitely did not turn out to be that way. I went to a really tough school, and in that tough school, I learned to run really fast. Um, I always got in trouble for getting in fights. I always tried to avoid fights. I got bullied for being a nerd. I got bullied for being in what we call the Bright Light Society. It was to honor like those who were working hard and doing really good in school. So I tried to be on the opposite side, and neither side worked for me. But the reason why I'm saying all that is because during that interaction, I used to run for my life. So I didn't get in a fight. So I didn't have to go tell my grandparents I got in a fight. And in doing so, there was this amazing traffic guard. She was my hero and will always be my hero because every day that I had to run, I got in trouble a couple times because I just ran right past her. And she would hold up that stop sign and I'd be like, nope, I'm not getting beat up. And I'll never forget when she caught me and she held me so tightly. And I felt like all sensation of relief. And next thing you know, she told those other kids to like leave me alone. And she asked me why I was running. I said, well, I'm running because if I don't run, then I get beat up at school. And if I get beat up at school, then I get beat up at home. And I said, it's just trying to avoid not getting beat up. And it took a while for me to start trusting her, but she made me a deal that if I could run there as fast as I can, she'll make sure I didn't get bullied. And I would say it was because of her that I am where I am today, because she made the report, she was my referral, and she saved me from, that really bad environment. It definitely sent me on a snowball effect. 27 different foster homes later, I can definitely say I've seen a lot, I've done a lot, I've met a lot of people, I've made a lot of friends. But one of the biggest things that I've learned from it is to really be open and trusting and really like put yourself out there, because every day is a new opportunity, and dwelling on the past was only setting me backwards. And it was the negativity of thinking that, why was it me? I had 2 other siblings. I was the middle child. There was 3 chances. Why was I that chance? And everyone always told me, God had a plan. It was God's reason for really putting you out there. And I didn't believe it. I just said that I had a really bad dealt in this world. And I said I didn't want to do that. All I wanted was a family. That's all I ever wanted, and I couldn't have it. I saw a lot of my friends having families, going home, visiting their family for vacation, for Christmas, for holidays, and I'll be left there wondering if I was going to actually be in another home, if I was going to stay with this home. And there was one day where I loved this family to death. They had all the animals in the world, and I was so excited because I really loved animals. And we were at Burger King. During the session at Burger King, I was so excited. It was the triple Whopper. Yes, I was a big kid. I was a big back even when I was growing up. And all I wanted was that. And the lady at the counter said, oh my God, you guys look so adorable. Are you adopting him? I didn't know what she was talking about. All I wanted was that triple. And the foster family that I was with thought that I was bothered because I was black and they were white. And I didn't see it. All I wanted was my burger. I was very naive at the time. And why I say that is because it was examples like that in which I look back and I go, no one asked me, in that time, did it really bother me? They just assumed that it bothered me because of my desire to want that burger. My face expression did not look happy when this lady was asking me questions. I'm just like, please give me my order. But in the grand scheme of things, it made me realize that you have to give those kids a voice. You have to be able to listen. You have to, look past your perspective and your ideals that you're gonna throw at it, because you never know what's really underneath. And I can tell you, everyone always asks, why did my wife marry me? There's a lot, but underneath, I'm a very, very emotional, loving. I wanted a big family, and I'm very thankful that she's able to give me my family that I have now. It was everything that I really asked and what I wanted, but I know that I have so much more love to give, and I'm not going to put her through any more childbirths or any more hospital visits. I'm going to try and, so I definitely want to say like how important that was for me to have those parents that were very loving, very supporting. The respite homes where, the foster parents needed a break from me because I was a lot. Even the respite homes were amazing. And another very prime example, a very good prime example that I really wanted to share with everyone today was one of my experience throughout the foster homes was Silver Springs Martin Luther School, now known as Gemma. I played a huge role in being in that school, and they've helped me along the way with my journey as well. Through college, they funded me. They did a lot of stuff to help me be able to continue being successful and giving back. But one of the greatest memories I had was there was 2 staffs there, Mr. Khalil, Mr. Russell, and God love them, they didn't give up on me. No matter how many times I came back to the unit thinking I was gonna have that other family, I was like, this is gonna be the next one, this is gonna be it. 13 years old, I'm just like, what's gonna happen? And they never gave up on me. They pushed me to do more when I fell behind because I wanted to try and fit in, to try to avoid being picked on. They continued to push me into the education. They pushed me into sports. I actually did not know how to play any sports. And I can remember getting pegged in the face multiple times by them. And at one point, I'm just like, yeah, I need to learn to catch. So I started catching, and then they took me to the gym. We played dodgeball. Again, pegged in the face. So I said, I need to learn how to throw. And the whole time, they were just teaching me just to like be a kid and really enjoy the moment that we have. And I think that's like one of the most important things. It's like really enjoying every moment that you have, no matter if times seem really dark, times seem really tough. Sorry, I always get emotional because at my lowest point in life was, as we know, COVID 2020. I'm just sitting there, and I said all I wanted to do was be with a family and, being supported, surrounded by that community. And I was like, I don't really have that community. Like I did, but I didn't. And God works in mysterious ways. He brought me my wife, and we fought the entire time because I'm going to tell the story the correct way. She stole my seat in psychology, and she made it very difficult for me to pay attention because I had a special seat that I always like to go to. But it was because of her that I was able to really pick apart my past traumas and pick apart and open up and learn to be more than what I am, and to learn to get through those difficult paths. She was able to help me through that, and I really, really, to this day, can't tell her enough how much I appreciate her. And having the kids really just opened me up even more. And I'm just like, I need to give back, and I need to make sure that everyone knows that foster care is very helpful, and not to give up on those kids because, there might be something else going on rather than, what you see. And I can say developmentally, I was definitely behind. And if it wasn't for the people not giving up on me, not calling me dumb and stupid and saying that you're never going to make it, I went to college. I played football. I joined the Eagles practice squad. Very fortunate. My knees weren't very fortunate. So I'm here, but I'm glad to be here. I will say I'm extremely glad to be here. And I'm extremely glad to use my knowledge, my experience to give back to the community. And I want to thank you guys so much for letting me speak. So.
You kept it at 15 minutes. Thank you. Thank you, Ezra. Much appreciated. And Ezra pointed on three things that I left the last event, our attendees with the last time. That is, we are a community, our children need us, and we need to show up and support them. And he touched on all three of those things. And I want you to continue to keep those three things in mind as we keep moving forward throughout the initiative. We are a community, our children need us, and we need to show up and keep supporting them, okay? So next on our program, we are going to call up our first presenters. We have Stacie Barrett from Dauphin County Social Services of Children and Youth, and Amy Mikos from Family United Network. Let's give them a hand. Mikos. I like to say names correct.
My name is Stacie Barrett. I'm a program specialist at Dauphin County Children and Youth, and I oversee the foster care programs, contracts, and I'm responsible for placement matching. A little bit background of how I came into this field. For college, I was actually applied mathematics and computer science major, and I decided I didn't want to be in the lab, but I really liked my public justice, which is a combination of social work and criminal justice together, and psychology. I've been in this field since 1994 through child welfare. I really love what I do. I came to Dauphin County in 2009, started out as a caseworker, kind of worked myself up as a program specialist, working with our contracts. I'll let Amy introduce herself.
Good evening. I'm Amy Mikos. I am with Families United Network. I am the Assistant Director of Foster Care Services. I call myself a dinosaur at Fun because I've been there since 2004. I was just a baby when I started. I was a caseworker for 11 years, and then I moved up into a supervisory role, and then in 2018 I was asked to come over to Harrisburg and start our foster care and adoption program in Harrisburg. So that's a little bit about me.
I guess I have to ask for the slides to be moved. Is it on? If you can just move the slide, thank you. Really hard for me to see. Thank you. So I just wanted to give a brief overview between children and youth and private agencies, just providing some information on foster care and kinship care, hoping to increase community supports and awareness for the children who need a safe home. In doing this job for a while, what I've noticed, and we talk about community, is that when we're making referrals to our foster providers, we are looking further and further away from Dauphin County, which again impacts our caseworkers and travel time, and our kids are being removed from their supports, homes, schools, friends, sports, and things like that. So with children and youth versus a private agency, children and youth, we're a public agency, we're part of the Child Welfare Agency. We're the legal authority that holds legal custody of a child. We're the initial point of contact for that child entering the foster care. The children are in an unsafe situation. It's deemed that we need to take custody to find a safe environment for them to be. And we're also a broad support offered for the children and families. So contracted foster care providers, which is Families United Network, Amy, and we do contract with I think at least 25 other agencies. and I believe there's a resource sheet on the back table that lists those agencies that we do contract with. So private agency contracts, again, with the counties to provide services. When children are placed, they do receive referrals from children and youth. So part of what I do and my team does when the child is unsafe, the caseworkers and supervisors will reach out to myself to make those referrals to our contracted providers to have a safe home presented for those children. Foster care providers, such as Families United, they offer special services are offered in addition to foster care services, and I can let Amy speak about that. And they offer focused support offered for the child, smaller caseloads, and faster response times. Yeah, please do.
Some of the, through Families United Network, and I think it's probably similar with other provider agencies. I mean, we have like your basic foster care and kinship care program in which, you know, our caseworkers are doing home visits, making sure the children are safe in the home, working with the foster families, etc. And there's additional services that might be, one that comes to mind is our transitional foster care program, and that's for our older youth, for our kids ages 14 and older. And so we're doing weekly home visits with those kids. We're working with the foster family, we're working with the kids to really hone in on those independent living skills in preparing them for adulthood. So we want them to have the documents that they need to, study their driver's license test, and so they can get employment, get their working papers from school. So our caseworkers are really working with them on helping them focus on the things that they need to be successful when they leave the foster care system and become an adult. So and the other, I'm trying to think of, so we have medical foster care. When children who are medically fragile have medical needs come to us, we have a program for medical foster children, and the foster families are specifically trained to deal with the specific medical needs of those kids. We have an intensive program, which is not a therapeutic, but it's kind of therapeutic, also in which we do weekly home visits, and we're providing that extra support for the foster family in dealing with the challenging behaviors that the kids might have, making sure the services are set up for that child, making sure that all of their emotional needs are being met. So that's just a little bit overview, and I believe most providers have like different levels and similar programming.
Yes, they do.
Sorry.
That's okay.
You have it.
Yes. So I just want to provide some definitions, if you can move on. Thank you. So Children and Youth Services, CYS, we're a local county agency who investigates allegations of child neglect and abuse, and we are the authority who takes custody of the children while in foster care, and we do need the judge's court order to do that. Traditional foster care is where a child is placed with a licensed, non-related caregiver to provide a safe, stable, and nurturing environment to a child who is in the custody of the Children and Youth Agency. The aim of our agency, right from the start, is to look for kinship. We are asking those families, who are your friends, who are your families, because we feel it's best that children are placed with people that they know. So kinship care is a type of foster care where a child is placed with a relative or close family friend, and that family goes through the approval process to become that child's certified foster care provider or home. Matching that I talked about earlier is that foster care agencies locate suitable homes for children in the foster care system. When I talk about making referrals to our providers, we are providing that agency with information on the child, including behaviors, mental health, challenges, where they can best find an appropriate match for that child to meet that child's needs. We do, for adoption, that's where the child is not able to return home. or that family, kinship family that they are with, are able to adopt them. Some of our agencies do private, so there's a fee-based for home studies that are provided, but most of our children that are placed with Dauphin County Children and Youth and other counties is SWAN, and that's the Adoption to the Child Welfare System. Next slide, please. So when placements are needed, there's a safety threat or concern in the current home, leading to the immediate need to locate a safe placement. So a referral has been made to children and youth. Our caseworkers are going to that home and deeming that it's unsafe for that child to be there. Family engagement, again, is started right away and continues until permanency achieved. We're holding family meetings right in the very beginning of the cases. Emergencies right that day. There's a crisis, pull your families together. Who are your supports for crisis rapid response meetings? And we are also doing family group conferencing to locate kin and also family finding. If family is not an option, then traditional families are needed for our children. Next slide. So exactly what is foster care? It's very temporary. We're working with, the birth parents, mom and dad, for the children to be reunited. It is court ordered. We do focus on reunification right off the bat. How can we get these kids home safely? What is needed? What supports can we put in place? If they cannot go home, again, alternative placements. If reunification is not an option, we're looking at adoption, subsidized permanent legal custodianship, which is SPLC. That's where the birth family's rights are still intact, but that caretaker does have guardianship and been able to make parental decisions for that child. Children's best interests are a priority, and then support services to the child and the family for case management from a provider perspective. Okay. Next slide, please. So who are the children in need of care? Just a small statistic is the age of children we serve range from infants to young adults, but the average age of a child in foster care is 8 years old. Children have a variety of backgrounds, and entering the foster care system, they've experienced abuse, neglect, families struggling with substance abuse, addiction, mental health, homelessness, domestic violence, and that's just to name a few concerns that happen in children's homes. Again, being in those conditions, children, come with a lot of trauma. So we're looking for foster parents to be trauma informed, to kind of look past those behaviors and to kind of hang on a little bit because kids do present with challenging behaviors. Aggression can come out in many ways: kicking, hitting, screaming, not being able to sleep. So we really want foster parents and our kinship parents to really know that it's not going to be an easy road. That's why we have a lot of supports in place through our providers, and to ask for help, to kind of pull people together. What can we do to best manage if they're having some difficulties? There's also a very high demand for sibling groups. We do not want to split children up. We want to keep the families together. Sometimes it may be impossible if we do have very large sibling groups. Right now we're kind of getting to the point where trying to keep 2 siblings together is not manageable for people. So I know my team is very passionate on keeping kids in the community together. If we're not able to keep them together, okay, looking at our foster providers, what homes are close together in the same, within miles, so they're able to see each other, able to visit, share a meal together, have that playtime, because they're brother and sister, brother. I'm going to turn it over to Amy now if you want to turn over the slide. Thank you.
Okay, I'm just going to talk a little bit about these are the basic requirements for foster families in the state of Pennsylvania. I will say there are additional requirements with different provider agencies. Some people or some agencies, but at bare minimum, these are the requirements that the state has, the Department of Human Services. So for folks that want to be foster parents, they need to be at least 21 years old. They need to pass an extensive background check. So we're doing the major clearances, the child abuse clearances, the FBI clearances, and the PA State Police clearances. But like our agency, we do more. So we're reaching out to local police jurisdictions where the family has resided in the past 10 years to see if there's been calls to the home. We're doing prothonotary checks and bankruptcy checks, all of that, not to, to say we're not going to necessarily find disqualifiers, but we're going to open up points of discussion with that family to ensure that they're in a stable situation currently in order to take on additional children. So we're also looking at the families need to demonstrate financial stability. So essentially their income needs to exceed their expenses. They need to be able to pay their bills and live and, without a foster care stipend. They need to pass a home inspection. That's on my next slide. Families need to demonstrate patience and the ability to provide for a child and meet their specific needs, both physical and emotional. Families need to be able to demonstrate stable emotional and physical health. We need vehicle information. This is a requirement for the state. They're looking for this stuff. So we need car insurance, car registration, car inspection, driver's license. Homeowners or renters insurance is also a requirement. Proof of income. Personal references. Medical exam is a requirement to ensure our families are free from communicable diseases. For those folks that might be on medications for mental health of their own, we get a clearance from their provider, essentially it's a reference indicating that they're able to be recommended to do foster care. And then all prospective foster families go through our pre-service training curriculum. All foster care agencies have their own curriculum, and it's typically between 20 and 24 hours in length. It's multiple sessions. It's our agency's training curriculum is trauma-informed, so we're going over parenting skills, how to parent children in out-of-home placements, how to parent children who are coming with trauma, and how to here are the tools to appropriately deal with those children in a healthy way. And in addition to the training curriculum, it is a requirement for foster parents to be trained in first aid and CPR. Some agencies might require certification, but at minimum they need to be trained. And they also need to become certified mandated reporters and complete the CPSL mandated reporter training online. So those are. And then if we go to the next slide, thank you. The home requirements, these again are the very basic requirements, and some agencies might have more requirements than are listed here. But all foster homes need to have operable smoke detectors on each level of the home, a carbon monoxide detector, a fire extinguisher in the kitchen area. For families that have well water, the well water needs to be tested at a lab to indicate its potability. It needs to be safe to drink. And foster homes need to have bedroom space for additional children. So foster children can share bedrooms with other children. However, children of the opposite gender over the age of 5 cannot share a bedroom. For folks that might have firearms in their home, we check to make sure that they are appropriately secured and locked up. And there's the Clean Air Act, which indicates that there is no smoking in foster homes or in foster parent vehicles. So those are the basic requirements. And now we have just frequently asked questions that we're just going to go through. They've been kind of asked many times over the years. I'll just go with the first one. I'm just going to read them. How is foster care different from adoption? In cases of both foster care and adoption, a child in need is placed in a supportive home. The difference hinges on parental rights. For foster care, parental rights still belong to birth parents. With adoption, adoptive parents gain full legal rights and can make all decisions regarding the child.
So the next one is, how do children come into foster care? I did touch on that. Children and youth, we receive reports of suspected abuse or neglect. It's determined that foster care is needed due to safety. My team will make that referral to the foster care agencies for a placement to be made. Again, the judge must approve this decision. And then children and youth workers and foster families will be expected to attend at least 2 to 3 court hearings. In the very beginning, it's at least 2, and then we have what's called firm reviews, which is every 3 months, depending on the case. But I did want to touch on something just for clarification. So with foster care and with kinship care, if families are doing formal kinship care, the requirements and regulations are the same as foster care families and kinship care families.
Will I receive support when working with a foster child? Yes. A case manager will be assigned to you upon placement of a child in your home and will maintain weekly contact with you in person in your home, virtually and by phone. The agency has 24/7 emergency on-call services. A daily subsidy is provided to foster families when a child is placed in the home to help offset the cost of food, clothing, and shelter. Referrals for out-of-home childcare for working families, supplemental programs such as WIC and early intervention, and counseling are made as needed.
Can I choose a type of child I foster? Yes, they're encouraged to express preferences, so they're matched with a child based on the needs and family's capacities. But I would encourage people to really kind of open their minds and their hearts for every child, because every child does need a family, especially our teenagers.
And I always let foster families know that we will call them outside of their preferences, especially when we're looking for placements after hours. Are foster children required to visit with their birth families? Birth family visits are often a requirement of the court. Most visits are supervised and occur at the child's originating children and youth office or a private visitation agency. Foster parents are responsible to transport children to visits. Visit times vary based on the agency expectations, reunification efforts, and age of the child. As cases near reunification, visits may transition to the parent's home or the community and increase in duration and frequency.
Where will a child attend school? So we have a whole team that handles all of this. When a child does come into care, we have to hold what's called a BID, which is a best interest determination meeting. And it's held very shortly after the placement of the child. I believe it's within a day or 2. We're supposed to be having those meetings to determine the most appropriate setting. Now, again, we try to keep the children within their same school setting, but sometimes that's just not possible. So there's a meeting to determine with their current school district and their school of origin on where they're going to be attending school, where they're going to be enrolled, and then transportations will be made for those out-of-district placements.
Are foster families responsible for the medical and dental expenses of their foster children? No, because children that are in foster care have medical assistance when at the time of placement into a foster home. So their medical expenses and dental expenses are completely covered.
Just to touch briefly on that, if the parents do have private insurance, that private insurance will follow the child, and then Medicaid will pick up the rest of those expenses. The next frequently asked question is, I have a traumatic past. Does that disqualify me from being approved as a foster parent? Absolutely not. issues have been worked through. But if there's, things that need to be talked about, that is done during the home study to talk about if, they're able to continue or what supports may be needed. We do have parents that do foster as single parents. You don't need to own your own home. You don't need to be wealthy. You just have to have a big heart and are willing to take on some challenging children. The ability and space to care for a child, and providers welcome people of all backgrounds to apply to become foster parents.
So what if a placement isn't working? We don't like to move kids. So we are going to do everything we can to support a family in a tough situation in order to maintain that placement. Being placed in foster care in and of itself is a trauma. So we are adding to the trauma of the kids every time we move them. So we are going to do everything that we can. Stacie and her team have started doing placement stability meetings, and it's awesome. And we pull together and try to come up with a plan in order to support the foster family and give them a break if they need it, and do everything that we can to remedy the challenges. That's not to say that we don't have situations where we have to move a kid. It's just not working out. There might be safety concerns, and those are emergent in nature. And then there's other situations that are just not a good fit. And for those situations, we ask families to give us 30 days to find an appropriate replacement, another home for those kids. So we always train our foster families to not call us and ask for immediate removal, as that's not fair to the child and it's not fair to the agencies involved. So.
And then again, I have so many more questions. Now what? Sure.
Does anybody have any questions for us? We pay for that. No. We really, especially when it comes to kinship, we're really trying to make it work. We want the kids to be with familiar people. We want them to stay in their communities. We want them with family if possible. So we have to follow the state regulations. So the basics are what I reviewed. Our agency has additional things that we require of foster families, but we will work with the family.
So outside of kinship, standard foster family, no regulation at all, they have to pass everything that's on that list.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, and if a well water test fails, we'll bleach the well. We'll do everything we can to get a passing well water test. We'll ask the family to drink bottled water in the interim of getting a passing test, things of that nature. Does that answer your question? Do you have anything specific that you're...
I'm just getting this information like you're putting it out there.
Yeah.
And I was just looking at everything that is required
Yes.
for someone to even consider fostering a child.
Yes.
And that list, even though you said it's basic, was very extensive.
It is
So
extensive.
my mind goes to the families that have big hearts, but not big minds. The families that
financial piece, it's a requirement. So if their expense with their income and their expenses, if their bottom line at the end of the month is $10, that's good enough. Does that make sense? Like families don't have to be wealthy. They don't have to have money in a savings account or have all the extras. And a lot of our families, a lot of our kinship families come to us for help sometimes. Like they might fall short, so they might need their check early, earlier in the month than what is scheduled. And so we'll work with them to help them out. And we also work closely with the Keystone Family Alliance, which is a fantastic resource for things, for beds, for bedding, for anything really that a foster family or kinship family would need.
You guys work closely with the fire department, because I'm thinking that for some of
Yeah, we
the
actually,
people that don't have the smoke detectors,
yes.
don't have the carbon monoxide detectors.
Yep.
I know the fire department has done a wonderful job for the city and surrounding areas in Dauphin County, Purple Eye, to provide these things, and you can install it.
Yes, we absolutely do. Yes. It's a fantastic resource. And that was actually brought up at an agency-wide meeting that I was at earlier today, that local fire departments are wonderful for that. So they will provide not only the smoke detectors or carbon monoxide detectors, they will come out and install them. So, yeah, we absolutely do utilize them. Yeah, we really get creative. We really want what's best for the kids, as best as we can. Yeah.
And I can also say for Dauphin County Children and Youth, we do get very creative in keeping kids with families. What is needed? How do we make this work? If there's an issue, all right, let's get together and let's be solution focused and problem solve so it will work out. Sometimes if they're not able to be approvable, okay, how can we keep them in this home safely without having them have to go through the kinship process or the foster care process? Is there any more questions? I think Amy and I will be sticking around, so if anybody wants to approach us, please do. If you want to hit the next slide. So this is my contact information. That's my direct line to my office. And then there's also my email if you're more of a tech person and just want to email me. Definitely give me a call if you have any questions, want to talk about it from Dauphin County perspective. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stacie and Amy, for your presentation and for your time. Greatly appreciate it. And like they said, if you have questions or think of something as we continue to go forward, they will be here until the remainder of the evening. And so by all means, you can pick their brains or you can reach out to them via email or telephone. And Amy actually mentioned one of the great resources that Children and Youth utilizes, which is Keystone Family Alliance, and they are here. And so we're going to call up Mariah Rogers. She's going to be our next presenter for the evening, and she's going to lead us and guide us.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I loved hearing a little shout out to KeyFam because, yeah, we do provide a lot of physical resources, but we also provide trainings and other opportunities to equip foster parents. So my name is Mariah Rogers. I am an equipping educator with Keystone Family Alliance. And Cindy and I are a team of two, and we go into churches and schools and summer camps, anywhere where these kids from hard places are showing up and needing extra support. And so we equip the adults around them to be able to meet the needs of those kids in a trauma-informed way. And there were so many things I've heard this evening that just reflect what KeyFam is all about. Our goal is for foster parents to be successful. And in order to be successful, the foster parents and the community around them needs to be equipped with an understanding of trauma and trauma-informed care. And we're passionate about raising up foster families in every county so that kids can stay local, so they can stay in their original communities, and then providing the resources and support so that kids can experience stability, because again, every time they move is more trauma. And we also don't want our foster parents quitting, because they do all the time. It's just a little bit about me. This is my, can you switch slides? This is me and my family. These two kids are adopted out of foster care, and we have had a plethora of other children in and out of our home. Yeah, it is chaotic, even with just the two. It's still very chaotic in our home because there is a lot of trauma. So I live and breathe this training that I provide to other families. And so tonight, I'm just going to give you like the briefest of brief overview of what we offer to churches and schools and foster parents, with a real emphasis on what is coming into the home when a foster child enters a foster home. Go ahead and switch the slides. So these are just two quick quotes to kind of set the groundwork for the rest of this talk. Peter Levine says, "Trauma is the most avoided, ignored, belittled, denied, misunderstood, and untreated cause of human suffering." What I really want you to know about trauma is that trauma is any adverse experience that then impedes the ability to function in everyday life. We all experience adverse experiences, but it's how that is processed in our body and impacts our everyday moving forward. And then Dr. Diane Langberg said, "Trauma is the mission field of our time. It is everywhere, and there is just so much need out there, and you are all hearing that tonight, and many of you, I think, we're already aware of that coming into this." Right, switch slides. Thank you. So in order to understand what is coming into the home, we need to understand what happened before that foster home. We were designed by God to need another person, a caregiver specifically, to co-regulate with us, to help us manage our emotions, to learn our place in the world, to know that the world is safe for independence and risk-taking, and to learn that there are safe people to whom we can return. And all of this actually starts happening before birth. But even after birth, an infant has a need, right? They start crying. That's how they express their need. And the caregiver meets that need. They change the diaper, they feed the baby, they swaddle them to get them warm, and that baby is soothed and relaxed. When a baby keeps crying and crying, you've tried everything. You've tried to meet all those needs, but the baby's still crying. Then we move on to things like shushing, singing, swinging, rocking, bouncing. All of these are helping them to regulate. We are doing the regulation for them at that stage. As they get a little older, the goal is to move on to co-regulation, where they play a more active role in regulating. And then eventually, as they get older, they're going to be able to self-regulate. If they missed this experience, if their first year of life is met with unmet needs, their caregiver is not responding to their cries consistently, they're going to come into their foster home, even if it's years later after that first year, even if they're 10 years old when they come into the foster home, if their first year was characterized by unmet needs, then they're going to come into their foster home having an infant level unmet need. And we will see that play out in their behaviors. Kids can't just get past this stage. There's no stage of child development that you can just skip past. Every time we show up for a baby, whether it's a biological baby or one who is in care, we are giving that baby a yes. Yes, I'll feed you when you're hungry. Yes, I'll change you when you're uncomfortable. Yes, I'll rock you when you're overstimulated. Yes, I see you. Yes, I hear you. Yes, you matter. I'm going to change the slide. Thank you. When that happens, when a caregiver consistently meets those needs in the first year, the infant learns things like, I am loved and valued. I can trust others. I have a voice. I'm safe. I am okay when I'm alone, and I'm okay when I'm with others. They learn how to give and receive care, how to make and maintain relationships, how to regulate. Obviously, a 1-year-old is not capable of these things yet, but it is laying that groundwork so that one day they will have that foundation that they need to build these skills. I'm gonna change the slide again. Sorry, I have a lot of slides. When it doesn't happen consistently, when those needs are not met consistently, there are catastrophic impacts. But I don't want to be super discouraging here because I'm sure a lot of you are parents and you know you cannot meet your children's needs all the time. Sometimes you have to take a shower. Sometimes you have to cook dinner even when your child is crying. The cycle doesn't have to be completed perfectly every single time in order for secure attachment to form. It just needs to happen consistently enough. And one statistic, data point that we have is that it's 30% of the time. If you can meet the need consistently 30% of the time, it's better to do more. But if you can do it at least 30% of the time, then that's enough. Let me change the slide again. So what are the catastrophic impacts if they don't have those needs met consistently in that first year? They learn, I am not safe, I cannot trust others, I don't have a voice, I'm not loved or valued. They will build ineffective or non-existent regulatory skills. They'll have ineffective or non-existent social and relationship building skills. And foster parents, when they have these kids come into their home, they don't have that bank of yeses that when you have a biological child, you build that bank of yeses, right? You give them that first year, it's just yes, 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 I will give you what you need. Foster parents don't have that. And so each time they say no to that child, they're reinforcing the belief that, these beliefs that are up here, and it triggers the child's brain to defend itself and reach back to those maladaptive survival strategies that they formed back in infancy. Every human, when needs are not met, will resort to survival strategies. And in the moment, those are good because they keep you alive. But when they're then in a safe environment, they become maladaptive or seen as bad. But the brain doesn't know it's safe. Change the slide. So then that was the first year of attachment. The second year of attachment, this is the terrible twos. The child wants something. The caregiver sets a limit, says, no, you can't have that, that's not safe, or we'll do it this way instead. The child either accepts that limit, tests the limit, or defies the limit. And the caregiver responds appropriately without exploding. That's one way, an unhealthy way that caregivers might respond, or without setting a boundary at all, or not following through on a boundary at all. And if that happens persistently, again, there are catastrophic impacts. If they experience a caregiver who does not respond appropriately to a child testing limits, then they aren't going to trust caregiver limits. Even if it's a completely different adult than the one that they were with in this stage, if they end up in a foster home, they're not going to trust that foster parent to set limits. They don't trust what will happen when they test a boundary. So for some kids, this might mean that they just stop testing boundaries. Which then inhibits their development because they aren't exploring their world, which is how you learn. And for other kids, they're going to test limits way more for way longer than is typical. And because they're trying to prove, if I just test this enough, my caregiver will explode or my caregiver will leave me. They're trying to reinforce what their brain has already learned. They're not trying to be difficult. They're trying to make sense of their world. Healthy caregivers show good limits and create an environment of success that has fewer no's in it because they know that no's are hard for kids. And this means creating an environment where unsafe things are put away, where when a child is struggling with a behavior, you adapt the environment so that they don't have that temptation there. This picture is of my son Jasir when he first came to us. He was about 4.5, almost 5, and we took him on his first ever hike. You can see he's holding a stick here. He is, especially then, really struggled with aggression, like very intense aggression. Sticks were not safe in Jasir's hands. And so I had to keep setting a limit for him while we were on this hike. Jasir, we need to put the stick down. The stick stays on the ground, one end in your hand, one end on the ground. He really struggled with that. And so eventually I just had to say, Jasir, no sticks. No sticks or you're going to need to hold my hand. Unfortunately, in nature, I could not remove all the sticks to help him be successful, but I could remove every stick-like object from our home, and we did. We had those little kid cleaning tools that they can clean along with mom and dad. It was a lovely thought. Mops and brooms are not mops and brooms to Jasir. They are swords. They are objects to flail around and injure his sister and his parents, foster parents. So I tried for so long for them to be out and just set limits. He couldn't accept that. He didn't know how to trust me. And so I just put them away so that I didn't have to keep saying no. I set the environment up for success for him. Parents and teachers working with kids with trauma are drawing from that empty yes bank. So first, they have to focus on building trust because the child never had anyone prove to them that they were worthy of trust. They have to give as many yeses as possible and reframe no's into yeses whenever possible. Go ahead and go to the next slide, please. Okay, so I just want you to do this little exercise with me for a moment. Just imagine that you are walking in the woods and you see a small dog sitting by a tree. As you approach, it suddenly lunges at you with its teeth bared. What do you do? And I want actual input. What would you do? Leave it alone? What would you guys do? Yes, and that's okay to say that. It's okay to say that you would fight it. Throw a rock at it. Throw a stick at it. How many of you would freeze? Turn into a stone? How many of you would run? Yeah, we all would have these stress responses. Go ahead and go to the next slide. But let's imagine that you take a step back and you realize that one of the dog's legs is caught in a trap. Immediately, your mood shifts from anger to concern. You see that the dog's aggression is coming from vulnerability and pain. And this applies to all of us. When we behave in hurtful ways, it is because we are caught in some kind of painful trap. The more we look through the eyes of wisdom at ourselves and each other, the more we cultivate a compassionate heart. That whole exercise and description comes from Tara Brock from the True Refuge. But I just think it is such a picture of what we need foster parents to be aware of, what we need the community to be aware of. This is what is coming into the homes of foster parents. A child or a teen who has been wounded and is caught in a trap. This is what we need professionals to remember is happening in the homes. This is what we need foster parents to see. Wounded children caught in traps that they didn't ask for. And they're acting out of their pain and fear. And then that elicits a stress response in the foster parents. And every single person in that dynamic needs support. Because over time, that can break down the relationship between the parent and the child and negatively impact everyone's healing. Go ahead and go to the next slide. This book, Reclaim Compassion, is a phenomenal resource. It really addresses blocked care. Blocked care is when parents or caregivers or professionals lose their compassion. They become soul weary and can even begin to blame the struggles on the child. Knowing why the children in their home are struggling is one of the best ways to prevent blocked care. Because once they hit blocked care, once they reach that point, it is incredibly difficult to move forward because they've lost their compassion. They're not looking for solutions. They're caught in their own trap. And so part of that is, as was mentioned with the agencies, that they provide training up front before there are any kids in the home. But it's also ongoing training, the importance of having ongoing training, because each time a foster parent is reminded who these kids are and what's happening inside them, it elicits that compassion. It brings that compassion back. And I know that from experience because I live it every day. I need to be reminded, even as one who gives the trainings, I'm reminding myself, oh, right, they're not choosing this. They're not trying to make my life harder. Even though when I'm sitting outside my son's bedroom as he's raging and screaming and cursing at me, it feels like he doesn't want to, feels like he's trying to make my life difficult. It feels like he's trying to come up with the worst possible things he could say and do, but he's not. He's just wounded, caught in a trap that he didn't choose. If we can help parents to heal and help them remain in a regulated place, that can help to create an environment for children to heal. Right, next slide. One of the best ways to do this is to cultivate a sense of preciousness in children. I know we all know children are precious, but again, when they're raging at you, they don't feel so precious. And so Dr. Karen Purvis said, the goal is to see the precious child that exists beneath the survival strategies and to let them know that we see them. One of the recommendations for that is to just look at early photos of the child before you knew how hard it would be, when they were still innocent in the foster parent's eyes. Anything we can do to cultivate that compassion. And just remembering that we show compassion to a toddler who makes a mess because we know they don't know better. We know they didn't have the skills to do differently. We need to do the same for our kids who are 5, 12, 18, even 50. When they make a mess of their lives, we need to be there with compassion. We aren't just bringing behaviors into our home, we're bringing precious children. Next slide. Okay, so I think everyone here is probably aware that, I mean, it's already been mentioned tonight, that fostering means bringing behaviors into our homes. And everyone seems to focus on what do we do about the behaviors. In fact, Dr. Ross Green said, so long as caregivers are solely focused on modifying a child's behavior, the problems that are causing that behavior will remain unsolved. But when caregivers focus on solving the problems collaboratively and proactively, not only do the problems get solved, the challenging behaviors that are associated with those problems subside. This was kind of alluded to earlier with the testimonial, that it's not always what it seems. Their behaviors are not just behaviors, they are communication. We see the behavior, but that behavior is just a survival mechanism based on how trauma changes the brain, the body, biology, and belief systems. When attachment doesn't happen the way it was meant to happen, it literally changes brains. Their brains don't look the same on a brain scan. Go ahead and go to the next slide. This is a real brain scan. The one on the left is a typical child born into their biological family with a relatively healthy upbringing. The one on the right is a child from extreme abuse. And the lit up areas are good. That means active, that brain is working actively and is able to function. Look how much is missing. That child does not have the skills they need to function on the same level as the child on the left. Our brain adapts for our survival, and that's good until it's not. When they're no longer in a situation where they need to survive, their brain doesn't automatically have the skills because they've been in that maladaptive pattern for so long. But there's good news. Neuroplasticity. which just means that brains can change. Brain rehab is real, right? Like we hear about people who have strokes or traumatic brain injuries, and it takes a long time, but they recover. Maybe not to the full extent of where they were before, but they do recover. And that's true for kids with trauma. In a healing environment, they can heal. They can recover. The older they are when that starts, though, the longer it's going to take because brains lose their neuroplasticity with time. Go ahead and change the slide again. I just had to include this because I think this is such a great model. This is from Dr. Dan Siegel. He created this hand model of the brain, so you can even do it with me if you choose to. The fist represents the brain. The thumb, the tucked in thumb, is the downstairs brain or the amygdala. This is where all the survival functions happen, and it's fully wired at birth. They are born ready to survive, ready to, that's why they cry when they have a need. Then the rest of your hand represents the upstairs brain or the thinking brain. This isn't fully formed until the age of 25, and that's in kids who are neurotypical, haven't had trauma. When a child experiences a really hard first few years, or just trauma in later years, the downstairs brain becomes overdeveloped, and which then causes the upstairs brain to be underdeveloped, so that thinking brain won't be as strong. The amygdala, that downstairs brain, can be up to 5 times larger. And when the survival brain is on, thinking is off. We call this the flipped lid. There's no logic, there's no reasoning, there's no sense of consequences. They don't care about consequences because they're just trying to stay alive. There's no sense of, if I do this, then this will happen. And when I say they're just trying to stay alive, that's what their brain thinks is happening. They actually think that they are in danger. Their life is in danger. And when I say think, I don't actually mean think, because they're not thinking. Their bodies just know, I'm in danger. Their brains are wired to sense that. Next slide, please. This is another book I highly recommend, The Body Keeps the Score, because trauma changes the body. It doesn't just change the brain, it changes the body. And when foster parents can see and understand how much trauma has changed the bodies of the kids in their homes, and I would argue also when they can understand how much trauma has changed the bodies of the biological parents, and maybe even of themselves as the foster parents, they're going to approach the children, the bio parents themselves, with greater compassion and a trauma-informed lens, as long as we've equipped them to do so. But just some of the ways that trauma changes the body, it can cause hyperactivity. It changes sensory needs. So some kids are going to be overreactive or underreactive to different stimuli. If any of you know of a child who is constantly making noise or rocking or fidgeting, that's because their sensory system hasn't been fully integrated, which is caused by trauma. They also, our bodies remember. Even if they don't have a conscious cognitive memory, if they were removed from their biological family in the fall, then come October, when the leaves start changing, their bodies remember, and they might start having more dysregulations, they might start struggling with behaviors. They might completely regress to acting like the age that they were upon removal, because their bodies remember. Go ahead and change the slide. Trauma also changes actual biology. I'm sure most of you are familiar with ACEs at this point. It's pretty, yes. Yeah, absolutely. So we are, as the equipping team, we are able to meet with foster parents one-on-one and provide coaching services to them, which is completely free. And it can be whatever the foster parent needs. whether that is just one meeting and just problem solving or ongoing meeting and being able to talk through challenging behaviors and how to adapt what the home looks like and what the parenting looks like in that home. Because the goal is keeping kids there, and a lot of time, and we want parents to come to us before they're about to put in their 30 days notice, because we want them to come ideally before they've reached the stage of blocked care. Because like I said, it's a lot harder to put in the work when you have lost compassion. We also provide weekly trainings, virtual trainings on Monday nights from 8 to 9 p.m., which also provide, like, for agencies that require training hours, we are able to provide a training certificate, and you can give that to your agency. And we do a wide variety of topics. We just did ADHD and trauma this last week. Coming up in January, we'll be doing a follow-up on ADHD, because so many kids who are in foster care and have trauma have ADHD. There's a huge overlap. We also are able to, as was mentioned, have a system where caseworkers can input tangible needs that foster parents or bio parents have in order to, like, if a bio parent needs something in order to reunify, then that can be put into the system, and people in the community, in the local community, are able to meet that need. We have care communities, which is another really important tool for preventing burnout and blocked care, is if foster parents are getting on-the-ground support from the people in their community, providing respite, providing meals, cleaning their home, helping with yard work, folding laundry, whatever it is, because there are so many extra needs that foster parents have. Their kids are tend to have higher needs, but also we love the caseworkers, but they're in our home all the time. And I can't clean when I'm having a caseworker visit, and I can't cook dinner when a caseworker is in my home because I am engaged with them. And so just with all those extra demands, extra therapy appointments, a lot of the kids need early intervention services, and with all those extra things, there's just less time and less capacity, and so we can have a care community wrap around a family. Yeah, and then we also provide supports to the community in training churches and teachers and camp counselors to be able to meet the needs. And I mean, you've gotten a bit of a taste of that tonight, of what that would look like. Yeah. I don't know how much more time. Like, do you want me to keep going? Okay.
So thank you, Mariah, for your presentation. Much appreciated. That concludes our presentations for the evening. We're hoping that everyone was able to grab a little bit of something from each of our presenters. And like we said earlier this evening, if you have any questions whatsoever for our presenters, they are here. They are going to stick around while we have our refreshments in the back. We also have a resource table that you could take full advantage of, that is back there beyond the sanctuary here. And we also want to remind you to make sure you're scanning that QR code so we can get your feedback, because we need your feedback. We want to continue to improve the great work that we're doing. And we just want to say thank you to you all who have come tonight, greatly appreciated. And just real quick, our next event is in March, and that is the panel discussion that we will be having at Greater Zion Missionary Baptist Church. And so we look forward to seeing each of you there, and not just come on your own, but bring someone with you to our next event as well. And so thank you all once again, and we hope that you all have a great evening. Thank you.